4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you had a great weekend. The Browns just wrapped up their final training camp practice before heading out to Carolina for joint practices with the Panthers and then the preseason opener in Carolina. Also, the final training camp practice open to the public today. Before practice, Kevin Stefanski gave us an update on the injury situation for the Browns.
Injury front, Miles will be back out here today. He's feeling good. Dylan Gabriel's dealing with a little bit of tightness in his hamstring, so he'll be limited a bit. And then Shedeur, he's good. Was sore in his arm and his thrown shoulder, but getting treatment and he should be fine. Also, you're going to see we have a celebrity guest out here today coaching. A guy named Joe Thomas will be helping out with the offensive line. So anytime Joe's around and we can mine him for everything he's worth, we're going to do that. So he's back in the O-line meeting rooms, getting his football fix, and we're happy to have him.
And never a bad thing to have a Hall of Fame tackle working with the offensive line. So as Coach Stefanski mentioned, Shedeur Sanders missed the practice on Saturday because of a sore throwing shoulder. He was back today. Sanders was asked about telling his dad, Dion, not to come to training camp just yet.
Yeah, I told him don't come.
And why did you say that?
Because, I mean, like I look at it at my own point of view. Like, I don't want him coming to see me right now because I want to get to where I want to go then for him to see me. I don't want him to come and see me, get a couple reps and, he's cheering like a good dad. Like, nah, you can't be proud of me right now. I got to get to where I'm going, and I know it's a lot I got to do to get there. So it's kind of like I just want everything that I'm doing is just, like, focus on this time, and I don't want no distractions because we know how the media, we know how everybody will take it and take away from the team just from him being my own dad showing up. So, it's a gift and a curse at the same time.
And Sanders is progressing, so we'll have plenty on Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel coming up. Tommy Rees, the new offensive coordinator, talking about evaluating these quarterbacks in camp and installing the Browns' new offense.
I think when you're focused on the process, the results start to show themselves, and you feel that in a certain progression as you go through camp, right? First 7 or 8 days, you're in an install mode where you're trying to install offense regardless of what you're really seeing defensively, and defensively you're trying to install your stuff regardless of what you're seeing on offense. And then once you kind of get past that install phase, you start focusing, all right, this is who we believe we can be, this is what fits our team, this is what fits our personnel, and then you start to build off of that, and that's when you want to see the results follow because the process has been laid.
Hey Tommy, just looking at it, it looks like Dylan Gabriel is really struggling. So how do you assess the way that he's having this camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think all 4 of our guys have had really positive days and have had some days where they've not practiced as well as they want to. Certainly you're going to see great days from guys, and then they're going to bounce back the next day and maybe not be as polished as we'd want them to be. But we try to evaluate camp and practices and the off season in a totality and not just trying to look at one day at a time.
And again, it's important to take things in perspective. Gabriel, they're giving him a little bit more. Sanders is starting to get more. So, again, we'll see. We will see. Former Browns quarterback Bernie Kosar, his thoughts on the quarterback and especially the Browns' 2 rookies.
I love how he's handling stuff. Notice today we were all out here. He's out here an hour early before stuff.
Beats everyone.
And that's working out type stuff. And and then he's one of the last guys here signing autographs, being nice and that. Dylan Gabriel's picking up the system. I mean, it's fun to watch. I would caution fans, and this started something, a little bit of a rub in my Baker Mayfield relationship because I love Baker as a quarterback. But early in his career, I thought the team was going to struggle, so I thought Tyrod Taylor should have been the quarterback. Sacrifice us old veteran guys. Don't dissipate the belief and confidence of a young quarterback. We kill more quarterbacks by putting them in there early and stuff. So to have the veterans play early, especially in September, I think would be very productive for the long-term careers of the team and the young quarterbacks.
And again, Bernie Kosar, a guy that played early in his career and had a lot of success. But again, let's kind of let this play out and see what happens as the quarterbacks develop and grow. Browns signed a tight end. They also signed a running back and a familiar name, Travion Williams. He's 5'8", 206 pounds, 27 years old, 6 years in the NFL, all of them with the Bengals. So you might remember him from the Bengals. Only 60 carries in his career, better than 5 yards a carry as an average. Does play quite a bit of special teams, but again, Browns adding to that running back room with Travion Williams. So we'll continue to monitor, see how that develops. Still waiting on some clarity with Quinshon Judkins, the second-round pick. Turn our attention to the Guardians. Guardians trying to sweep the Twins over at Progressive Field yesterday. Joey Cantillo got the start for the Guardians, and it was not a great start. First inning, Matt Wallner at the plate. That would be an RBI single to center. 1-0 Twins. Still in the first, Royce Lewis. That would be an RBI double to left field. 2-0 Twins. We're still in the first, and there's more Twins. Trevor Larnach. That's a 2-run single. Twins score 4 in the first and lead it 4-0. Bottom of the first, Jose Ramirez. That would be a 2-run homer to cut the lead in half, 4-2. Stayed 4-2 until the 8th inning. Cody Clemens, and that one goes as a bunt single, and it scores a run, 5-2. That run, hugely important because the Guardians scored 2 in the 9th. It wasn't enough as the Twins win it by a score of 5-4. The Guardians head out to New York. They will open up a 3-game series against the Mets tonight. Time for us to take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we head out to the Browns training facility in Berea. Lance Reisland will join us with a recap of what went on today at Browns training camp. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me. The Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Browns wrapped up training camp that is available and open to the public today, their final day before travel day for Carolina. In pads and in uniform for the Browns, the running back we told you about last segment, Travion Williams, signed and going through drills with the Browns out in Berea. Joe Flacco getting in some work as well. This time hits Jerry Jeudy. Pretty nice throw. Kenny Pickett coming back from that hamstring finds LaVerdane. Shedeur Sanders back working through it as well, finding Deontay Johnson. And another Shedeur Sanders to Chase Cotta. And a good look as Luke Floria getting some work in as well. Again, the Browns wrapped up the portion of training camp open to the fans. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, who has been at training camp and joins us. Lance, just kind of some takeaways from today's practice, final one before they head on out to Carolina for the joint practices.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was pretty impressed just because these practices are always tough right before you leave, right? It's tough to get your work in. It's tough to be focused. I thought they were very focused. I thought the offense did a really nice job of having much better tempo today. Again, Joe Flacco was very good today. The quarterbacks all did some good things in one-on-ones and team drills. It was mostly Flacco, a little bit of Gabriel, a little bit of Sanders. I thought Flacco is separating himself in terms of what he's able to do for this offense, the throws he's making, both with the timing, helping out with pressure, getting rid of the football. Again, I thought, Gabriel had a little bit of a hamstring issue today during previous interviews before practice, so he wasn't involved in everything today for the most part. I will say this. I thought Sanders had his best couple plays in a row. They were doing a drill trying to set up for a field goal with short time on the clock. He made a really, really nice dig route throw to Deontay Johnson. Then he made an incredible seam route throw to Floria to set up a field goal. And then came back and showed us some of the concerns, holding on to the ball. The next series, he got sacked twice. So you saw some really good from him. And then you saw some of the areas of concern. I thought there was a pretty physical practice. I thought the run game was a little bit better today inside. I look forward to seeing this run game against a team that doesn't penetrate like the Browns. So Friday is going to be a big deal with this inside run game for the Browns.
There's been a lot of talk about Dillon Gabriel and what we've seen. Take us through kind of, and we've talked about this, honest. They are putting more and asking more of Dillon Gabriel right now than they are of Shedeur Sanders for whatever reason, because of where they feel they are developmentally.
Well, I say this with whole confidence here. The thing that Dillon Gabriel is getting, both of these guys are getting way too much praise and way too much criticism. The thing about Dillon Gabriel is that if you're a product-based person, which as in the NFL as a quarterback, everything is based on the result. In the last 2 days of practice, last 2.5 days of practice, he has not been super accurate with the football. However, I have seen some things with him setting up pass protection, the formations, the things they're doing. He's been doing a very nice job. So that process leading up to the play. But the bottom line is that the result is what's most important, the completion, right? The wins. Those are the most important parts of football. And last couple of days he has struggled. So the concerns are there. But there also has been a lot of positive things that have happened. There's also been a lot of positive things that have happened with Sanders. You're starting to see him today. You got to see him. For me, this was his first opportunity where it was everybody was watching. Both the offense and defense were on the sidelines watching. There wasn't split up. And he made two really good throws in that 2-minute drill. So you saw maybe his strength of being a game player, right? A gamer. So I think both quarterbacks are doing a great job. Gabriel is really digesting the process of this. And I think that gives him a good chance to be successful along with Sanders. But they got to know it first. And Gabriel is a guy that knows it. And he's just got to make sure that end result, that product, which has not been good last couple of days, improves as he moves forward this week down in Carolina.
Who are some guys that have kind of flashed the last couple of practices that you've been at?
Well, Deontay Johnson's a guy who you can see the skill set, right? When he catches a dig, he made a great catch on a dig route today where he extended himself over the middle, really good out route runner. Some cut-ups I have on him, just his ability to catch the ball in space, his catch radius, his run after catch. You can see all the skill set he has. Very impressed with Carson Schwartz, not only his physical tools, but his ability to lead. I focused on the safeties a lot today because you're thinking, is it going to be Jenkins? Is it going to be Kazee? Is it going to be Hickman? Those guys are all doing a really nice job of being interchangeable parts. Delpit was back almost 100% today, back practicing. You can see his influx inside, how good he is down by the line of scrimmage. And I will say this, all 8 to 9 to 10 of those defensive linemen, those guys are all really, really good. I know it's redundant, but when you watch Myles Garrett every day, he's even better than advertised when you get to stand next to him, watch him practice. So the defensive line, I'm really looking forward to seeing this offense try to run the ball against a defensive line that doesn't penetrate. But that defensive line has been the most impressive part of camp for me.
Zach Zinter banged up. We don't know what the extent of it is left and went with the training staff. So we'll find out that as it goes on. And as soon as we know something, we'll pass that along. What are you paying attention to? What's the most important thing in the Carolina joint practices? And quarterback is always going to be important when you're looking for one. So we'll take that out of the equation. What are some things, if you hear this is happening, it's really good. And if you hear this is happening, it's not so good?
Well, for me, it's going to be just because of the controlled atmosphere they'll be in. It's the identity, right? Can they run the ball and can they stop the run? Do they have a physical presence on their double teams, on their zone? Can they get the gap schemes going with the power, counter, pin, and pull? Can they get to the edge? How are these backs? How is Sampson going to be? Can they get to second and third and long when they're on defense? Because if they can win first down, Now you get to turn those pass rushers loose with those good coverage guys and those good linebackers. So for me, it's all about the interior. Can they control the interior line of scrimmage from tackle to tackle, both in the run game on offense and in defense? If they can do that, there's some success moving forward, because that you have a chance to win if you can run the ball and stop the run. So it's really not the schemes, it's the identity that I'll be looking at Friday night. Are they physical, and do they stay consistently physical throughout the game?
I'm curious if the Panthers can block the defensive line. That's one of the things, even in the practices, in the joint practices. Can this defensive line pretty much wreck an offense?
Well, if you're a zone team, like the Browns like to run that zone, and when you're these guys aren't reading the offensive lineman that much, so it's really hard to run zone. And the Browns have really struggled running their zone this week because of the technique and the way that the defensive linemen play for the Browns. They're getting in that gap and going. When you're 300 pounds and you're just saying, I'm going to run through B gap, it's really hard to double team. So if a team is going to play read and react, which a lot of teams do, I think these double teams will be are going to be very, very successful. On the other hand, yes, it's going to be very interesting, because I guarantee you Carolina is not seeing guys like Mason Graham and Malik Collins and Myles Garrett and Alex Wright. Not that they don't have players like that, but their Browns are 8 to 10 deep with guys who are long, can penetrate one gap or so. It'll be very interesting. I expect them to dominate, be pretty dominant on the defensive side of the ball, especially that defensive line against whatever offensive line, especially early on when the Panthers haven't really prepared like they will with a scouting report during the year.
Before I let you go, who are some off-the-radar guys that continue to shine? Some guys that aren't being talked about a lot that have a real chance of making this 53-man roster.
Well, this receiver thing is really interesting, but this Gage Larvidan, he is a guy who keeps making plays, and every year there's guys that are camp guys who really, really do well, but he's a guy who his flexibility, even though he's undersized, he can play outside, run some of those outside routes. They've run him on some gadget plays. He's really good in the slot. Luke Flory is a guy that can make this team. Thrash is a guy that can make this team. Offensive line, I'm interested to see the depth of the offensive line. Obviously, we all know who those 5 starters are going to be for the Browns, but Jenkins and these guys in the back and Whitner, can they build some? I've been fairly impressed with the physicality of Whitner last couple of days, so I'm interested to see that. But that receiver core, once they're live action, I'm interested to see who kind of steps up between like Floria, Thrash, Larvidan, Caden Davis. There's some guys that have made some plays. Now they got to do it when it counts.
We keep hearing, I've heard a number of different guys say Floria has a legitimate chance. And I think you and I were talking about it like coming out of OTAs.
Well, there's no question about it, and it's not a feel-good story. And I've said this even with Gage Larvidan. Floria fits a skill set out here, and it's a slot receiver. Today he was back returning a bunch of punts, which I think is very important, because I think it'll be very crucial for him to be a gunner on punt, a punt returner, be able to play multiple positions on offense. If they get in 11 personnel, to be that true slot to help with the run game, to throw it to him. He's been very, very consistent in his route running. He's been very, very consistent in his approach every single day. He's very workmanlike. He does a great job. But there's a lot of skill in Luke Flory. His ability, he is really, really twitchy inside. He's hard to cover inside. So he's a guy that's much better athletically than people gave him credit for. He's a guy in that slot that could really be helpful. Him and Carter and Larvidan, they got some guys we're going to see moving forward here when they get in live action. But Flory is not a fluke out here. He's really playing.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Great stuff coming to us from Browns training camp in Berea. He writes for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Tom Withers on the other side of the break. We're still talking Browns. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I want to wish the Cleveland Browns new season a lot of hope and great things happen this year. My concern is the crazy hype over Sanders. I think it's derailing the Browns season. He's overhyped, and he's becoming out of control with these people talking about him. It's almost like Deshaun Watson when he was coming in with all the hype. I think the hype is not good for the Cleveland Browns. I think that they got to focus on Flacco. He's our man. It's just too much media, too much hype, and we don't need that at the beginning of our season. So I think it'd be best for the Browns to just move on from Sanders, because it's already a blown out of control situation that the Browns don't need. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Tom Withers. Tom, again, the hype is predominantly from the fans in the media, which doesn't affect the team in any way. And, you know, Sanders, I'm starting to become really intrigued. I've kind of sat back and waited, and you're hearing more and more. He looks really good. He throws a catchable ball. My question is, can he avoid taking the crazy sacks? And does he have enough to throw that 15 to 18-yard dig over the middle of the field? If he does, I think you have an NFL quarterback.
Dave, you sound very rational about this. I mean, you must not be from Cleveland or something. This is, I'm glad you've taken a patient approach here. I think everybody needs to take a deep breath. This quarterback thing will sort itself out. We're only 10 days into camp. They've got a combined practice coming up this week with Carolina. They're going to have a preseason game. All this will get sorted out. But I'm with you, Dave. I think that's a pretty good read by you on Sanders. I mean, obviously, and as the caller said as well, as the voicemail said, there's a lot of hype that comes with him, right? Obviously, if his name's not Sanders, if his dad's not a Hall of Famer, we're probably not having these kinds of conversations, at least that a lot of fans are having right now. So, you know, I've got to trust the Browns coaching staff and front office. And I know, look, I know people have felt betrayed and burned before by them with their quarterback plans, but I do like the way that they're going about this. I think in Dillon Gabriel, they feel like they got a guy that's an accomplished college quarterback with a strong skill set that's seen a lot more football and a lot more complicated defense than Shedeur Sanders has so far. So I think that's a big reason right now why you've seen him get more reps with the ones. I really think like they want to see if Dillon Gabriel could potentially be their backup, maybe even as early as this season. Clearly the starting job is between Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. That's the way that's going to shake out. But I'm with you. I'm intrigued in what I've seen in Sanders so far. I like the way he's gone about, becoming a pro player. I know the Browns are very enthralled with his poise and his precision. He's a very accurate thrower. He showed that at Colorado. There's some things that he does really well, and there's a lot of work that he's got to do still. I think you'll start to see him get those reps with the first team when the Browns feel that he's ready. I'll use the analogy to being a minor league baseball player. You got to face single-A pitching first before they move you along and up the ladder. And I think that's what's going on with Shedeur Sanders right now.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree with you. All right, so longtime Cleveland sports radio host Tony Rizzo, his thoughts about the Browns quarterback competition.
Are they going to manipulate this quarterback competition? Have they done it so far?
Yeah.
Have they done it so far?
Yeah, they have.
How? Not letting my guy take reps with the ones, bringing him along slowly. Okay, there are people who believe he's got to learn the playbook or he can't handle the huddle. I think that's garbage. Okay, I do. Whatever reason, it's a slow burn with Shedeur. Okay, fine. Listen, they've got Flacco, who's loved here, Kenny Pickett, their golden boy, and Dillon Gabriel, who they drafted in the 3rd round. I get it. Do I like it? No, but I get it. So I'm looking at those 3 guys and then a whole separate competition with Shedeur to see if they can get him ready to start the second half of the season. Ideally, I would love for the Browns not to get to Shedeur this year because that means they won 10, 11 games. That's not going to happen.
I mean, I really like Tony. I consider him a friend. I don't agree with that at all. Here's the thing. You don't manufacture holding back a quarterback if you think he can play, especially if you're the Browns. I mean, we heard from Bernie Kosar earlier in the show. He's the last really quarterback who played a significant amount of time. You're trying to do everything you can to find a quarterback moving forward.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave, and I like Tony a lot. I've known him for years. I think he's he's very accomplished on the radio, does a really nice job. He's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth right here, right now. He wants to see Shedeur. He wants to see him as quickly as possible, but he even acknowledges that the kid's not ready, and that's what I said to you earlier, Dave. I don't think there's any hurry with him whatsoever. He was taken in the 5th round for a reason. The Browns took Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round for a reason. They liked him better as a quarterback. He's played many more games. He's faced many more tough defenses than Shedeur Sanders has. Not to say that Shedeur's not a good player. I think we all see some upside with him. I think we see some great potential in him. Let's just take our time. I think the worry for Browns fans is that, if they're going to start either Pickett or Flacco, and I think clearly one of those two guys will be your starter in week 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the worry is that if you ride with one of them for 6, 7, 8 games, however long it takes, and God, knock on wood, the injury thing, you got to try to avoid that as best you can. So you're not rushing one of these kids out there before they're ready. But I think the worry that Browns fans have is, are they going to devote enough time this year to seeing whether or not Sanders or Gabriel is the guy going forward before you get to the draft next year? And when you have 2 first-round picks and all that comes with that, we've already heard all the, the rumors and the rumblings about Arch Manning and whether or not Jimmy Haslam has already kind of, penciled him into that spot. So we'll see. But again, I can understand why fans are lacking patience in this. They want to see this happen fast. But I think this year is, and listen, it's going to be a very difficult line for the Browns coaching staff to walk. We've seen it in baseball. We've seen it in basketball. We've seen it in football. It is really hard to develop and win at the same time. And obviously, and I've said this to you before, Dave, on this spot, this was better than a 3-14 roster last year. Things snowballed in a bad way for them. They got bad quarterback play, injuries mounted, ball didn't bounce their way. A lot of things contributed to them finishing up where they did last year. I think it's a better team than a 3-14 team. I think it had potential to be a 500 or so team last year. I kind of feel the same way this year if everything shakes out the right way. And obviously, you've already had a couple of hurdles to overcome, with the running back situation, with the linebacking situation. You got to hope that there's no more injuries ahead, at least not to key players. But as far as the quarterback room is concerned, you've got 4 options. In Flacco and Pickett, you've got 2 proven players. You know what you got in those 2 guys. And I think best case scenario for the Browns is that either Flacco or Pickett starts the year, you go 6 or 7 games, and then you turn it over to which one of those rookies you feel is ready. And hey, you might even be able to play one or both of those guys in the same game. That's not far-fetched at all.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I know fans go crazy with, we got to find out what we have in Gabriel and Sanders. That coaching staff is going to know before they ever hit the field. Hitting the field in a game is the final piece that will say, yeah, this is our guy, or he might be 2 or 3 on an NFL roster. It's not going to 180 degrees change everything.
No, you're 100% right, Dave. And they've already got, they've already have some opinions, some strong opinions, made about both Sanders and Gabriel. In Gabriel, again, they like the way he processes. They like the way that he absorbed the playbook as quickly as he did. I think there's a reason he's out there before Shedeur, and that's not just because he's the 3rd-round pick against the 5th-round pick. He was more ready to take on an NFL starting defense than Shedeur Sanders was. Case in point, that's the bottom line, and that's the way. And I don't care, fans can feel how they want to. This is the way the coaching staff feels, and that's all that really counts at the end of the day. So, again, I understand why people may not be very trustworthy, given what's happened with the quarterback situation here over the last 5, 10, 15, or as you mentioned, 35 years. It's been a long drought here. But you got to hope that, with 4 options, they're going to get it right this time. And if they don't get it right this year, you wait till next year. You take a guy again high, as I've talked to you about it as well, Dave. There's going to be other movement in other camps this summer. Somebody's going to get cut that you don't expect to have it happen. Somebody's going to go on the trade block that you don't expect to happen. Things move, especially at that position. So don't get locked in and don't get too crazy over the current situation because, as we all know, it could change in a matter of hours or days.
Before we go to break, what's the formula offensively look like if this team is going to win and be successful? Because I got to be honest with you, I don't see any of these quarterbacks thrown for 300 yards a game with what they have offensively.
I tend to agree with you. Obviously, there was going to be more of an emphasis on the running game this year, and obviously the Quinshon Judkins situation has changed that a little bit. That's not to say, though, that they can't get production out of Ford and Strong and Sampson and whoever else. Again, there may be somebody that they pick up this summer as well. The Judkins situation is still going to be played out. Dave, I think your point is valid in that, you would hope that a guy like Joe Flacco could go out there, take care of the ball, throw for 225 yards or more. We know Joe's ability to throw the ball deep down the field. I think the key for me, like we can talk about the offensive line at some point. I'm still worried about this wide receiver situation only because in Jerry Jeudy, you have a 1, and I think he's a proven 1. And I think there's still an upside for Jerry Jeudy to get to another level. I'm worried about what 2, 3, and 4 look like with this team. I don't see enough targets. And if you want to throw the tight ends in with the wide receiving group, that's fine in terms of targets. But in terms of what the formula needs to be, it's got to be solid quarterback play, not turn the ball over, run it when you can, come up with a big play when you can, and hope that some of these wide receivers, I'm talking about Cedric Tillman and Thrash and Deontay Johnson, somebody's got to step up and have a big year for them.
Yeah, and with their defense, which we're going to talk about after this break, if they're as good as I think they can be, you got a chance. You got a chance in most games. Tom Withers and I are going to step aside and take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk some defense. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back.
You got so much to do. It's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day. 'Cause it's fun all over the state. So come on. Great games wait for you and me. The Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns with Tom Withers. Defense coordinator Jim Schwartz was asked about the 2 rookies, Carson Schlesinger and Mason Graham, and how they've looked.
Both of those guys are really doing well. I mean, let's not put them in the Hall of Fame yet. They're both rookies. But I'll start with Mace. Mace has really made a tremendous turnaround in his body composition. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but it's been significant from the time he got here after the draft to the shape he's in now. His metrics are much improved. He's running a lot faster. And there was an adjustment. He played a read scheme where he was hunkering at the line of scrimmage, so he didn't get a chance to make a lot of sacks or those tackles for losses, even though he's really productive in what he did. So not only was he sort of changing his body composition, but he was learning a whole new way to play defense, which is attack. And there's been, some setbacks along the way, but the thing with Mace is he's taken 2 steps forward for every 1 step back he's taken. So he's gaining ground. And you're starting to see him make more plays. I think it was Friday. He had one of the best rushes he's had in practice. It was a B-gap rush, and it was just beating the guard with speed. Nothing fancy about it. But that was something that we really hadn't seen a lot of.
And Tom, if Mason Graham is able to do those kind of things, if you're lining him up next to Myles Garrett, that would be wrecking an offense.
That's your formula on defense, right? It's like turn those 2 guys loose. And I agree with Schwartz. I wasn't out there a ton during OTAs, and I've only been at a few training camp practices, but he's right. His body is different. I know Mason Graham was one of the decorated players from Michigan last year, and it looks like he may have gone on the banquet circuit once the season ended because he came in, he didn't look great, and we saw him get sick in that first practice and kind of had to fight his way through it. But I like the kid a lot. watching him play in college, he was disruptive. As Schwartz says, it wasn't necessarily his job to make plays behind the line of scrimmage, but sometimes he did it by accident just because he was beating the guys off the ball and just kind of a mauler inside. And you have to be excited about the potential of him and Garrett on the same sides. So we'll see. In Schlesinger, I think, I've really been impressed with his skill set. He moves incredibly well out there, and really intrigued with him as well. So, and listen, Jim Schwartz is not going to throw around praise to any rookies before he feels like they're ready to hear it. He doesn't want to pump up these guys' egos to the point where they feel like they're more than they are before they've earned it. And so, I take everything that he says, to heart, because I think Jim is a straight shooter, and I think we've seen that with him during his tenure with the Browns.
So I'm with you with Schlesinger. Let's talk a little bit, though, about Graham and Malik Collins. I think because they took Graham and Schlesinger, people aren't paying enough attention to the signing of Malik Collins. In Malik Collins and Mason Graham, I think Jim Schwartz is like, I finally got the defensive tackles I need, and I'm not really trying to take away from Tomlinson or
Tomlinson
or even Shelby Harris.
Right.
These two guys, though, are quick off the ball, and when you pair them with what they have at defensive end, I just got a feeling this defense is going to be a problem.
Yeah, to your point, Dave, kind of different kinds of defensive tackles, right? Maybe not, Tomlinson, a little more stout, kind of like just, kind of a people eater there inside. Really good guy. I like him a lot. Davlin was dealing with some knee injuries over the last couple of years, was not nearly as mobile as he was early in his career or clearly when he was at Alabama. But, in Graham and Collins, you got two guys that are strong inside and can move. To your point, Dave. I mean, these guys get off the ball with lightning speed, and it's more of that, attack mode that Schwartz was just talking about. They're going to turn these guys loose, let them do, let them play to their strengths and do what they do best, rather than kind of sitting in a formulaic type of scheme where they're not utilizing the strengths that those guys have. So I'm with you. I'm really interested to see how they fare this week against the Panthers. I've been impressed with what I did see out of those guys in camp. And so let's turn them loose, see what they got.
So tomorrow is a travel day, and then joint practices with Carolina in their first preseason game. Kevin Stefanski was asked, is there more value in the joint practices in the preseason game and the evaluation process for the young players?
I feel like there's value in everything, in what we're seeing from the guys. We value their how they do in the meeting room. We value how they are in the walkthrough, like I mentioned earlier. We value all these practice reps. Of course, when you're going up against another team and it's a setting where maybe you don't know exactly what the defense is going to do or the offense is going to do, I think there's certainly value created in that. And then in the preseason games, like I mentioned before, they're keeping score, so the competitive part of our sport kicks in, and you want to obviously do well in those venues as well.
So, Tom, I use that to set this up. What if you're watching and hearing from these joint practices, and probably the joint practices more so even than the preseason games, what are some things that are really good to hear, and what are some things that when you hear, you're like, that's not great?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, physicality. The last 2 years, and I remember 2 years ago, the Philadelphia Eagles got off the bus, and I was like, uh-oh. And, they went out and kicked the Browns' butts for a couple of days. I mean, the Browns by the end were able to kind of, even it up a little bit, but man, they got manhandled up front, and it was kind of eye-opening to us. And then last year the Vikings came in here, and it was one of those moments where, on top of what I saw in earlier in training camp with Deshaun Watson, I was like, oh boy, this could be trouble, because it felt like Minnesota's defense had kind of gotten their way, and then with the way the Vikings moved the ball and just seeing Justin Jefferson in person and what have you. So I think first and foremost, Dave, it's just being able to match up. And I think, obviously Carolina is not a team that's necessarily contending for a Super Bowl this year. So you would hope the Browns would get off the bus down there in Charlotte and be hungry and show that they belong on the field with them, because they do. So, to me, that would be one of the first signs, is that, the Browns were able to match up physically, that, we would expect Myles Garrett to dominate as always, right? I'll be very interested to see and hear how the offensive line holds up. There's still some questions to me on that offensive line. Not that I don't believe in Joel Bitonio or Wyatt Teller or DeJuan Jones or Ethan Posich and Jack Conklin. I think they're all really solid players, but that group has got to be, first of all, healthy and cohesive all year, because it's not going to matter who's back at quarterback if that group's not playing well together.
Yeah, I'm with you without question. Tom, appreciate the time. Thanks very much for joining us, Tom Withers. Always great stuff.
My pleasure, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Tom Withers, always really good stuff talking Browns. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, straight ahead. We're still talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. A Browns beat reporter Daryl Ryder with what he has seen from Dillon Gabriel so far in camp.
He's not good. He's not an NFL quarterback, not right now. Jeez. And the fact they keep running him out there for first team reps, and part of it I get because Kenny Pickett's banged up with a hamstring injury, so there's not a lot he can do. But this goes back. They have been putting him out there first with the 11-on-11 going back to the offseason program. They're cramming this guy down our throats, and it's not good. It's not a height thing. It's not personal. I mean, he's rolling out, and he can't hit guys that are wide open. He is not all that great at times during the warm-up periods. He's pretty good during 7-on-7 when there's no offensive and defensive lines. But he's just not a good quarterback, and he's a third-round pick. And I talked extensively yesterday, as you mentioned, on my show with Nick Padone. The problem that I have right now is that the Browns are forcing me to look at a third-round pick who has no business being in contention to start a football game this year. They're forcing me to evaluate him like he is a first-round pick and like he is a starting quarterback in the NFL, and that's not fair to Dillon. You're putting that kid in a really, really bad spot. Dillon Gabriel should be a developmental player, just like you have, as an organization, made the decision to have Shedeur Sanders be a developmental player.
Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. And Tim, Daryl Ryder is a really good beat reporter. He's been there every day. That is his read of what's gone on. It's interesting.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, we're obviously talking about, a quarterback who was picked 94th overall, just at the edge of the top 100. Obviously, this comes off, having by all accounts, not having good days on Friday or Saturday, going into the day off on Sunday. So, yeah, it's concerning, no question about it. Anytime a quarterback struggles for multiple days, there's obviously, concerns you could have. But again, this is just kind of the reality they have right now, where your second veteran quarterback in Kenny Pickett has been largely unavailable, for camp with a hamstring, and the Browns are clearly slow playing Shedeur Sanders. So I mean, someone's got to take the reps, and it's either force Shedeur to really speed up his development timeline, or go with Dillon Gabriel, who's a guy who has played in multiple offensive systems, gotten a ton of snaps in college, to get out there, because it's not just the quarterback that's got to get the reps. It's the offensive line that's got to get the reps. It's the skill players. It's the defense that's got to get those reps. Someone's got to play quarterback. Joe Flacco can't have all those reps with the first team and the second team. So certainly, I mean, it's a difficult situation for Dillon Gabriel. And the idea of him competing for the job, in my mind, it's always been, my own opinion, I've always felt like simply because of the schedule they have to start the season, it almost feels like the Browns almost have to go with a veteran quarterback. And right now, the only one healthy is Joe Flacco. So certainly, I would personally believe that he should be Flacco should be the week one starter, and then you do everything you can to prepare Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, behind closed doors, and keep growing them before you kind of have to put them out there to see if one of these guys can be the guy going forward.
So earlier in the show, we heard Gabriel kind of a tight hamstring, so he was limited with what he could do today. Gabriel was asked about how he feels he's doing in training camp earlier today.
I don't look at it through 2 weeks how I think I'm doing. I think just day to day, I think there's a lot of growth, and that's from when I first got here up until now. And I think it's forever evolving, and I want to continue to be better and continue to grow. And there's ups and downs and ebbs and flows within the competition field of play. That's just what happens. And for me, I just want to continue to be better than I was yesterday. And I've been prepared for the moment, So I'm excited for that, and know that these moments add up, but each moment is its own situation and one that you want to take advantage of.
So Tim, the joint practices in the preseason game going to be huge for both of those quarterbacks.
Yeah, if nothing else, I mean, to get him in game situations, get him, in a situation where, especially in the preseason game, they are going to be live, and they are going to have to, make those kind of decisions at a speed that's about, I'd say, 85% of a regular season game, because they're not getting game planned against, whatever things the defensive coordinator is calling in the preseason. It's all about getting those guys reps and getting them, getting evaluations on those guys more than what you do, what they're going to do to you as an offense. And with Gabriel and Sanders, obviously these guys need reps. You can just to get out there, to get experience, and especially with the Carolina joint practice coming up, to get him going up against guys they haven't seen yet, because they've been practicing against their own guys for a couple months, and sometimes you feel like you know those guys too well, and you already kind of have matchups you could probably go after. When you go up against somebody new, that brings a different scheme you're going against, different philosophies, different ways teams can attack you, and then that kind of changes how you your preparation and how you have to, what you have to do to be successful, basically. So that's the value I see in these joint practices. Obviously, some of them the past few years haven't gone well for the Browns. I think it was the Eagles. The Vikings last year, I know Tom Woods was talking about that. The Eagles, I'm trying to remember, it was 2022, where the Browns really did not look good in that situation. That's really the best way to get an evaluation of where you are, is against another opponent. And I think Carolina, with where the Browns are right now, I mean, Carolina's another team that a top 10 pick could certainly be better next season. But, just pure talent up and down the roster might not be a bad competition.
Shedeur Sanders was asked about the quarterback competition and the fact that he hasn't had any reps with the first-team offense yet.
I view it as the defense does a great job of mixing players in. So backers, you got rookies out there sometimes. DBs, you got different guys out there. So it's not mentally I go out there and I'm like, these are the ones I'm going to get nervous. Like, it don't got anything to do with that. And truthfully, I don't care what O-line I go out there with. It could be ones, twos, threes, whatever the situation is. And I know Friday when the game is, if I'm with twos, if I'm with threes, it don't matter to me. I'm just ready to get down and get to, doing what I could do. I don't think not getting out the mix is even a thought in my mind, in any room. So I know I have the utmost standards for myself, and I know all I could do is go out there and do what I got to do every day and make as minimal mistakes. And I know it's a long ways to go with everything, and I know, I lack experience on this realm and on this level. But one thing I can hang my hat on is in all pressure situations, you know who I am.
And, that will be interesting to see. So the questions with Sanders, can he stay in the pocket and not take really bad sacks, to kind of not drift? And with Gabriel, does he look like an undersized quarterback? And we'll get a little bit of a sense of that in the preseason game.
Practices are controlled situations, and I think it might have been J.J. Watt or somebody like that who was really talking about that, that when we're trying to evaluate training camp practices, you always have to look at them through a filter, that there's certain things teams are working on, that, it's not always designed for an offense to look great or a defense to look great. It's supposed to be some of these are supposed to be disadvantageous to one side or the other. There's just certain factors that are going on that kind of have to put context in everything, but the preseason games is a little different than that. I know, obviously, preseason games, like everything else, you take with a grain of salt, like I said, because, you're not getting specifically schemed up against. Those aren't the starters or even necessarily the backups for that team that you're going to see. But for Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, it's live reps. And I think, like I was saying earlier, to prove that for either guy to prove that they have a chance to be the guy, go out there and show what you're capable of. I mean, we saw what it did for Dorian Thompson-Robinson in 2023. Yeah, he was not good in the regular season, but you saw that there was at least, momentum, and that got people excited. So certainly, at least you want to generate positive momentum going forward. That said, you got to find a way to translate that from, preseason to regular season. We've seen that, not pan out, like I said, with DTR, with Kenny Pickett. Preseason doesn't necessarily correlate to regular season success, but these two guys in particular, especially with Shedeur, given that he doesn't have the experience that Dillon Gabriel has, just to get him out there, to get that experience, get that feel of those game situations at an NFL speed, it's going to, even a fraction of an NFL speed, considering backups and third stringers, just to get him out there is going to be so important for him.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit more about the Browns and their defense. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Browns defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz addressed the topic of turnovers. Pretty much everybody has said Browns need their defense to take the ball away more.
The biggest thing with takeaways has been us attacking the ball. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to anybody that's watched. You see 9 guys attacking the ball. And number one, that helps us. We've gotten some loose balls that way, but also it helps our offensive guys. If we're attacking the ball and being so productive there, it forces them to have better ball security. So that works hand in hand. Training camp, a lot of times it's hard to read for interceptions because so many interceptions come from a quarterback either throwing before he wanted to or getting hit when he's thrown or making a mistake. And in training camp, when you're not hitting the quarterback and those guys know they're not going to hit, they generally don't make those kind of mistakes. So, that'll just be more. But we have sort of emphasized a little bit more of a playmaker attitude, so taking some calculated risks here and there. And hopefully that'll show up on the field along with the ball disruption attempts that we've tried.
Yeah, Tim, That's one of the keys. Don't turn the ball over. Turn the ball over on defense. Take care of the ball. Turn the ball over. They're going to need to do those things to have any chance at all of winning games this year.
12 turnovers. That's what they had last year as a defense. They took it away 12 times and gave it away 34. You know, when you're a team with that kind of turnover differential, minus 22, that's a pretty good indication of why this team, you know, was 3-14 last season. So there was a lot that's interesting about what Jim Schwartz said, really, that, you know, fumbles are more important right now at this stage than interceptions, because interceptions can be caused by a bunch of different things. And when you're not allowed to create pressure on the quarterback, it's a little more difficult to create those in practice and really to judge those. So to hear him talk about how they're really trying to attack the ball carrier and punch the ball free, you know, of the offense, you know, every single time as much as they can, I think that's a good thing, because you know, I'm a proponent, maybe a little more new school, that not all interceptions are created equal. Such, like, if you throw an interception 50, 60 yards down the field and that's where the ball's down, it's like a punt. But fumbles, you know, in any stage are just bad. You know, you just can't have fumbles. And, you know, really that focus, I think, is only going to be, you know, helpful for a Browns offense that we think, you know, even with what's going on with Quinshon Judkins, is still going to try to run the football at a much higher rate and on a more effective rate as well than what they did the year prior.
So John Breach from CBS Sports HQ was talking about Micah Parsons. Now, Micah Parsons has requested a trade from the Cowboys. John Breach thinking that the Browns could be a trade partner for Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons landing in Cleveland would be fascinating, because right now I don't think anyone outside of Cleveland thinks this team can be a playoff contender this year. But if you are in the AFC North, you have to face Joe Burrow twice. You have to face Lamar Jackson twice. You have to face Aaron Rodgers twice. So if you're going to win games, it helps to have great defensive players. They already have one of the best defensive players in the NFL with Myles Garrett. You add another best defensive player in the NFL, Mike Parsons. Now you have two of the top 3 defensive players in the league on one defense. That at least gives you a puncher's chance to beat those other teams with those great quarterbacks. And if you can beat those other teams, maybe you can stay alive and compete for a wild card spot.
Tim, it makes no sense, because the defensive line is strong. You're going to have to give up a minimum of one of those 2 first-round picks next year, maybe both of them, or a first-round pick next year and a first-round pick the year after. I don't see that even remotely being possible.
Me neither. I mean, with the youth movement that we think this team is going through, there was no logic behind moving any first-round picks, you know, in the immediate future. There's just no logic behind it, especially when you haven't had any for 3 consecutive years leading up to 2025. That's number one. And number two, if you're going to make a trade, and I've said it before, I think it would have to be for offense, because the defense, to me, is not the issue. It looked bad last year because the offense kept putting it in so many bad positions that eventually, you know, they just couldn't hold on anymore. And I've talked about this, you know, all summer, all off season, the idea of complementary football. It's not just, you know, like run pass. It's offense has to complement the defense. And if you have an offense that is, you know, easily the worst in the league, you know, they could barely convert multiple third downs in a game. They were struggling to get, you know, multiple touchdowns in a game when Jameis Winston wasn't the quarterback. I don't know how Micah Parsons, as great as he is, helps that. He doesn't. So if you're going to go into your asset pool and try to move things around for a veteran, it's got to be a guy who helps you score points, because you don't need many more guys right now to bolster something that's already strong. If in the defense that's much stronger than the offense, if the offense isn't getting the job done, you know, that's where you need to start pouring some assets.
All right, so what's the most important thing that you want to see in the joint practices coming up against Panthers?
I want to see how the defense around Myles Garrett does. We know what Myles Garrett is going to do. Myles Garrett is going to do Myles Garrett things. Now, when I look at the Carolina Panthers, you know, this was an offense that really struggled at the start of last season. Then when Bryce Young came back after being benched, they got hot. You know, they were a much better offensive team. It seems like the light kind of came on for him, and slowly they've built some interesting pieces. You know, you look at this receiving corps, Ted McMillan, the 8th overall pick, you know, a very highly touted receiver. They've added some pieces on the offensive line. Chuba Hubbard, I think one of the more underrated running backs in the NFL. You know, we've seen what the Browns defense can do to its own offense. Now let's see what it does to another team. And can guys around Myles Garrett, you know, continue to perform? How does Mason Graham look against other guys? You know, can Carson Schwartz continue to make the same plays against guys like Chuba Hubbard and Tommy Tremble and, you know, all these other guys that the Carolina Panthers have, among many others? I know Tremble's injured right now, but when you have, you know, these different guys to go up against, how do you play against those guys? And I think that's going to be the thing I'm most interested in. Obviously, how the offense looks against Carolina's defense, which is certainly not as good as, you know, the Browns defense is. We'll see if that opens things up a little more, and then if they look better against them than they did against, you know, their own defense. But I think for me, I'm still looking for what kind of supporting cast Myles Garrett has, and if there's other guys, you know, around him that are going to step up and really look good this week.
Tim Bielik, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
Tim Bielik, make sure you check him out. Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Always really good stuff. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.